original email from what group.
He fell off.
Yeah, so I
We have-
forwarded it. And I like to support colleagues with that.
I've never done that.
There's a lot of competition.
Especially in New York. I think it's kind of far.
Urban ag stuff.
And you know, we had
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our second sustainability speaker series of the semester. Today we have a guest speaker, Dr. Ramdeo Seepaul from FAMU Beers Lab. This presentation today is a collaboration between the Global Leader Outreach for a Better Environment, as well as the Patel College of Global Sustainability. If you haven't already, please scan the check-in code. This just helps gauge how much people attend our events. I'll give you guys like a minute or two. These are some more of our QR codes if you'd like to keep in touch with our organization. You could follow us on Instagram, GroupMe or Bulls Connect. And also for communications with the Patel College, if you'd like to follow us on our social media. So the reason we have these sustainability speaker series are to help inform you guys of the Sustainable Development Goals. Some of the goals that this talk will address are zero hunger, SDG 13 climate action, and SDG 15, which is life on land. And to introduce the speaker, we'll have the Dean of the College, Dr. Philippides.
Great. Thank you, Dane. Hello, everybody. Good to see the classroom full, the room full. It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Seepaul today. I've known Andy for about, let's say, 10 years, just to round it up. We worked together on a big project funded by USDA. We were working on developing and commercializing a new cover crop in northern Florida and other southeastern states. The crop is called carinata, and we were interested in growing that to develop sustainable aviation fuel. So it's quite a multidisciplinary project. Andy is an agricultural scientist and sustainability leader, and as of 4 months ago, he became the director of the Brooksville Agricultural and Environmental Research Station, BEARS, that is part of Florida A&M University. So he used to be up in the Panhandle. Now he's moved much closer to us. He's only about an hour away. And one of the things we're doing today is meeting with Andy and discussing common interests so we can build a stronger relationship between USF, the Patel College, and other units of the university with BEARS. And with that, Andy, please up here. And Andy is going to give us an overview of the work he's done so far and the vision he has. And based on that, we can follow up with him to develop a closer relationship.
Thank you very much, Philippides. This afternoon, it's my pleasure to speak to you on science, the stewardship, means our responsibility, and climate smart ag for a changing world. I chose this topic intentionally because I think we are at the intersection, at the crossroads of climate change, science, economics, growing population, and the need for nutritious food. So this is a brief presentation outline. I'll share the purpose of this talk, give you a little background who I am and where I'm from and why I'm here. Sounds like a philosophy talk more than an agricultural talk. Uh, give you some background on bears and the land grant mission of FAMU. Delve into what sustainable agriculture is, more than it being a buzzword and a suite of management decisions that we make, and why it matters. Why Florida is a frontline state, why sustainability matters to Florida and Floridians, and how we can shift our actions from reacting to planning. And I want to state here that sustainability is about management. It's not about luck. We have to make intentional decisions if we want to achieve sustainability goals. Look at the economic realities for our producers in the state and what is causing adoption barriers for producers scaling from what we know works in agriculture and why we're not getting traction, adoption of some of the practices we are recommending. And since students here, I would like to close off with some career pathways as a call to action that you can have a part in agriculture and sustainable agriculture. So I am from a very small country called Guyana in the north coast of South America, and it's an agrarian economy. Rice and sugar production, the cornerstone of Guyana's economy. In 2022, about 59% or so of the rice that we produced was exported, and about 58% of the sugar that we produce was exported. So it means that as an agricultural economy, we can grow rice and sugar really well, but then also there are issues associated with growing these two crops, which I will discuss later on in a study that was recently published, why we need to be shifting from monocultures to diversifying agricultural production. So growing up on a farm, these are my parents in our very small, would call it backyard farming, but this is the farming in developing countries, what it looks like. My mom and dad in our tomato, spring onion, and leaf cutting celery farm. And we've been growing these crops continuously for as long as I've been alive, 40 plus years. And it has been grown with the practices that when I look back are the sustainable practices that modern agriculture needs to adopt. The concepts of crop rotation, rotating these crops one after the other, fallowing, leaving the land for a period of time unproductive so the land itself can regenerate, mulching and cover cropping. These are practices smallholder producers in developing countries adopt, and producers here adopt, but in terms of scaling those practices, the commercial agriculture and monocultures, it's a challenge, but they're creative ways of adopting sustainable practices in corporate agriculture. I want to share a few slides on my background in sustainable ag. According what George said, we worked together in a project that looked at developing a crop that can be grown in the off season in Florida. In our 250,000 plus acres of row crops in the state of Florida, only 5% of that land is cover cropped in the winter. We have highly erodible, leached, vulnerable acidic soils with extremely low pH that we are not protecting in the winter. Somebody tell me a scenario like this, what can happen? We can have runoff and erosion and leaching and our aquifers having higher nitrates than desired. So there is a lot of benefits to having the land covered 365 days of the year. So this project initially was addressing issues of keeping the land covered. And then as the project morphed and we got this $15 million grant, we realized that the seed has a novel chemistry that can be used to produce sustainable aviation fuel that can reduce greenhouse gas emission by up to 68% relative to petroleum. And this has been in commercial production for about 5 years, and it's currently on hiatus. So over a decade or so, I've worked in the agronomy of carnata in our cropping systems in Florida, Georgia, and in Alabama. In this project, I serve as the deputy project director, but most importantly, I serve as the feedstock development lead, where we brought together a multidisciplinary team to not only improve the crop, but then to develop those best management practices, or those sustainability recommendations on how to grow carnata in our cropping systems. And one thing I realized from this project, sustainability is not a single person, it's multidisciplinary. You need to bring varying disciplines to the table to address that common problem. And he brought together partners from 1862 land grants, 1890 land grants, as well as from industry. So we had a technology partner, ARA, out of Panama City, our seed developer and marketer who was commercializing the product was New Seed, and Glades Crop Care provided support to farmers who was growing this crop. So I'm repeating myself here because it seems like my slides are a little out of order here. So we were addressing the issue, we wanted to diversify crop production in Florida. But then we realized all these spin-off benefits by just covering that land. We are increasing water infiltration by having roots penetrating the soil profile rather than having water run off. By adding 7,000 pounds of biomass to our soil, we were increasing soil organic matter, which take about 10 years to do, but slow incrementally every season. By adding that amount of biomass, we can increase organic matter, so improve the soil health. And at the same time, it reduce leaching, because every time you cover the soil, like our beds that need cover, our soils need cover as well, because it protects it. It protects the soil by recycling nutrients. So the plants that are planted in that soil recycle nutrients in the biomass and prevent it from being leached into our water bodies. And we've dealt with impaired water bodies. A significant portion of the freshwater springs in Florida, 24 out of 30, are impaired because of high nitrate concentration. And one way of solving it is having cover crops on our lands in the winter. And then there's also this economic opportunity by double cropping. Instead of planting one crop in the early spring, harvest it in the fall, we can extend that growing season and the farmer can have increased revenue. It was about 45% or so of the seed was oil, and it can be converted to biofuels. As mentioned, about 68% reduction in carbon emissions. Then I moved on to another project after this one closed, and it was called Chairs. We realized that we were not gaining traction. We know the benefits of covering the soil for 50 years, but the adoption rate stuck at 5%. In the entire Southeast, I think it's on average, it's a little higher. It's about 8%. So this other project called Cheers, which is the Conservation Hub for Economic Empowerment of Rural Stakeholders, a large cap project as well, was looking at how we can advance these climate smart winter systems in Florida, Georgia, and Alabama. And we were not only looking at carnata, it was one option. How about a producer that plants a forage and graze that forage in the winter, or a producer that wants to plant canola or any other crop, just keeping the land productive in the off season? What are the barriers of entry into adopting a winter cropping system? So I was not able to finish with this project because I joined Beers in the first year of this project, but my role was to look at the economic and environmental trade-offs of these the cropping systems. And I joined Bears. Bears is a part of FAMU. I would like to share a little bit about what a land grant institution is. So there is only two land grants in the state of Florida. We have an 1862 land grant, which is University of Florida, and we have an 1890 land grant, which is FAMU. FAMU is an HBCU as well. And what a land grant does, it provides funding for our university to conduct research. And in addition to, so we have the 1890 Morrell Act, then we have the Smith-Lever Act, which provides funding to take that research from the labs and the fields to the end user through the Smith-Lever Act of 1914, which created the Cooperative Extension Service in the US. And in Florida, we have this cooperative extension between Florida and FAMU. And then we have what's called the Evans-Allen Act of 1977, and that provides funding for agricultural and food research to the 1890 land grant institutions like FAMU. So together, research, extension, and education makes up the tripartite mission of the land grant system. So FAMU, the mission is excellence with caring, and we are addressing this mission through advancing education, research, and service. One of the colleges, the College of Ag and Food Sciences, advances agriculture through research, teaching, and extension. That the primary clientele is farmers and strengthens rural communities and protecting Florida's natural resources. And this is the crux of the discussion, protecting natural resources, sustainability. So as part of CAFS, the College of Ag and Food Sciences, Pierce is one of 3 off-campus facilities. And it's a 3,800-acre facility that FAMU acquired in 2015. And we conduct research in any of these areas, or plan to, because we're now developing a research program in climate smart ag and emerging and specialty crops, in livestock and forage systems, environmental stewardship, because of where we're located on deep sandy soils, creating a partnership with producers, industry, developing youth and community engagement programs, whether it's through 4-H, and training student and workforce development through our education arm. One of the things I would like to share, part of our facility has been leased to Duke Energy, and it's generates about 75 megawatts or so of power that's capable of powering about 23,000 homes in the community. So this is another aspect of sustainability where we're harnessing natural resources at our facility. One of the organizations that we have a close relationship with is the Florida Black Farmers and Agriculturalists Association. And through our extension agents and faculty that we're about to hire, we'll be providing pasture-based training to support herd improvement and forage management. So my current role at Bears is the director, and my goal is to provide leadership and oversight to advance Bears as a flagship land grant research and innovation hub in Central Florida. This picture here that you're seeing is just a drone image of where the office and lab facilities are. We sit on a hill. It's about 297 feet above sea level. And I think it's like a second highest point in all of Florida. So we do sit on a hill. The picture below is just, we're a small team. Our president, Marva Johnson, visited us in fall last year, and along with her dean. We're a small team, but we're looking to grow our group in the next 6 months. Looking at the footprint of our facility, it's in 4 parcels, and I labeled them where the offices, the laboratories. We have a small 5-acre fruit orchard that we'll be installing in the next few months. We have livestock pavilions that process animals. We do have a herd. There's a lakeside lodge by Lake Lindsay that needs, we'll be upgrading. The Rattler Solar Farm is in our bigger, was 2,200-acre parcel. And there is a tungsten prairie, which is a natural grassland ecosystem that is very important to water management. And then there's a Chinsigat Manor, which we recently acquired a lease to. That Chinsigat Manor and the retreat center will allow us to expand programming because we now can use this facility to improve our academic programming. The Manor is a museum that is managed by the Tampa Bay History Center. We will be maintaining that relationship and providing that resource to the community. So this is what you're here for. What is sustainable ag? I give you a background of what I bring to the table in my previous life, the sustainable agriculture. And if you're looking for a definition, I would like to share with you this one from NIFA, USDA's National Institute of Food and Agriculture. So there's three things that I would like to point out in this definition. Profitable farm income. So we talk about the economics of a farm, promote environmental stewardship, and enhance the quality of life of farm families and communities. So sustainable agriculture is based on these three things. It's not based on one individual aspect. It's the combination. It's about how well we can balance profitable farm income, promote environmental stewardship, and then enhance the quality of life. Because more than likely, these things are at loggerheads. Because there may be a practice that we recommend, but then, for example, we know we can grow more corn if we apply more fertilizer. But that's not what we should be doing. We should not be maximizing, we should be optimizing. So if we maximize, we will know we'll be having much more of our fertilizer in our aquifers, because only 50% of the fertilizer applied is taken up by the plant. Guess where the other 50% goes? So it means that we have to find ways of balancing our approach. And I said in the beginning, sustainability is about decision making. It's not about luck. We have to intentionally make decisions to achieve sustainability in agriculture. So it addresses three pillars. We have the planet, profit, and people. Environmental sustainability looks at minimizing the use of synthetic fertilizers, the use of pesticides, because we would like to promote biodiversity as much as possible on our farms. So what kind of practices can we recommend that will be healthy for the planet? Then profit. A farmer will never adopt a practice if it is not economical. It has to increase his bottom line in order for him to adopt a recommendation. We can't go tell a farmer grow a winter crop when he's investing $300 in that winter crop per acre, and then he doesn't get any benefits from it. Dollar benefit. We know he will get benefit in the long run. But if he doesn't get dollar benefit, he's not going to adopt that practice. You know why? Because 60% of our land in the state of Florida is leased. And a farmer after 3 years, I don't want to speak for farmers, but if I was a farmer, I don't think I want to invest all of that resources into land that after the 3 years, you don't know what happens to it. Another farmer leases it or it becomes a subdivision. So sustainability is another thing about it. It's long term. You have to think in the long term, what effects we're having in the long term, not in that given growing season. And then people. We have to enhance the quality of life of farmers and rural communities. This means that we must balance ecological, financial health with human and community well-being. And when we put all these things together, we need to have equitable food access. And I would like to add nutritious to that food access, because the food we're having access to is high in calories, low in nutrition. So how do we develop systems that are that can provide communities highly nutritious foods? So my talk today, I should have said it in the beginning as a disclaimer, I just wanted to be thought-provoking. I'm not going to be providing answers. Really, from my experience, I will share with you my best estimate or a guesstimate of an answer. But I would just like you to think where we are as a state and as a civilization when it comes to food production systems. So sustainability is a balance between these three things: environmental, social, and economic. And it's not a single practice. If I recommend to a farmer, apply 90 units of N to your cotton rather than 120 units, that in of itself is not sustainability. We have to take the environmental aspect of it and how that affects his livelihood. So sustainability is also data-driven. It requires measurable outcomes in things like yield. Are we making a difference in water quality? That's and carbon sequestration. And so those are the environmental metrics, and profitability, the economic metrics. And without this balance, I think we have some issues such as food insecurity, and I don't want to be doomsday, but and say ecosystem collapse. But I would like to put this in perspective. If we apply broad spectrum herbicide to our farming systems, we kill all the generalists, pollinators, what is happening downstream? We know the population of monarch butterflies, what happened to it. And if we didn't make changes by providing food sources for it, we would not have seen those populations come back. So making intentional decisions is what sustainability is all about. And I can't help but say this again, farming must be profitable for it to be sustainable. So every recommendation as scientists that we make has to be through this lens. Is it making the farmer some money? So I've given you a definition of what sustainability is and what it comprises. I want to bring this a little granular to something that we're familiar with, agriculture in the state of Florida. And agriculture in our state is a $10 billion enterprise. And we produce over 300 commodities in the state. Because from Miami to Jay, Florida, the border with Alabama, we have different growing regions. We have from tropical to subtropical to semi-temperate, that we can grow over 300 crops. So, but this means that we're also vulnerable. Our environment makes us vulnerable in the sense that it's also a petri dish. All the diseases, not all the diseases are very prevalent in the state. A lot of, if you look at the literature in plant disease, you'll see every year, first report of a disease. It's coming from the state of Florida. A new pest is coming from the state of Florida. So because of our environment and we're warming, we're pushing the boundaries where winter weeds are becoming summer weeds and summer weeds are becoming winter weeds. And it means that we have to put more herbicides in the system. So knowing that we have a $10 billion industry, I would just like to ask, what do you think is shaping Florida's agriculture? Just shout out a few things. Lobbyists, so politics and policies. Economy.
Economics. Consumer demand.
Monsanto.
Corporate agriculture.
Jane.
So I think at my previous workplace, we did this exercise, and this is how it came out. It's a word cloud, and it shows where I think about 80-something people responded to the poll, and this is how the word cloud came out. Climate change being the number one, and all of these things are affecting Florida's agriculture at once. So we have to be able to think about sustainable agriculture, what we can use that's working and at the small scale, and how to scale that to address some of these issues. And I want to go through some of what is shared in that word cloud.
So what is currently affecting agriculture? Our sand, as I said, is low in organic matter. Organic matter is like a sponge. For the soil, it holds the water and it holds the nutrients. When we don't have organic matter in the soil, whatever is applied as fertilizer gets into the waterway through leaching or runoff. So we need to build our organic matter. Most of the soils in Florida, especially in the agricultural regions, are very sandy. We have high nutrient runoff. And this also affects the quality of our freshwater springs. I mentioned about continuous pest and disease cycles. We're having a rapid population growth, and I have a couple slides on this. And then we also have sea level rise that's causing coastal and inland flooding that's creating risks for crop loss. So these are the issues that farmers have to face with that are producing food in our state. So I want to take some of these things and just show quickly some data. So this is observed and projected temperature change for the state of Florida. And we can see that our temperatures have increased by more than 2 degrees Fahrenheit since the early 1900s. And even if we lower emissions than where we currently are, if we continue where we are, that will in the higher emission range. But if we lower emission, we're still higher than where we are today. So we can slow the rate of the warming, but we've already caused significant amount of damage. So extreme heat and high humidity for agriculture increases the risk of heat illness for animals, and it puts a lot of strain on agriculture, our water supplies, and our energy demand. So what I want to share here are warming the state. We're getting, this past season, we had some very cold days, but that was just an anomaly. Every single year for the past 5 years, it's been on record to be like the warmest. So we're definitely warming the temperature is warming. And I pulled this as of today, but this is the most recent data that was released by the US Drought Monitor. And we are currently as a state under a severe or extreme drought conditions. So we are about 10 inches in deficit of water. So what that means for the cattle producer in Hernando County, Sumter, Pasco, and Citrus counties, just think about it. When we don't have enough water in spring, it means the pasture would not grow as fast enough. Hay yields will be low. And then under severe conditions, we have extreme danger, fire danger. In our waters, there's a fish kill because of when temperature increase, oxygen, dissolved oxygen is lowered. We have toxic algal blooms. So the state is currently dry state. We're 10 inches below. And when we are in periods of drought, we have a significant effect on hay. In some years, about 100% of the hay acreages are affected. Our cattle production in some years, see from this graph, about 50% or so is affected. So, similarly for all the other crops, in periods of drought and poor water conditions, it reduces photosynthesis because plants close their stomata when they don't have water. It means they don't accumulate biomass, yields are depressed. And then we have to deal with this. This is a conservative estimate. This is only about 760 people moving to Florida on a daily basis. The rule of thumb was 1,100, I think, sometime last year I heard. But this is out of some published data out of Florida 2070, published a joint project by the Thousand Friends of Florida and UF Geoplant Center that shows what's going to happen in 2070 and where it's going to happen. We can see that the growth in population, about 57% in population in all of the state, but that's going to be concentrated in Central Florida. Just think about the traffic. What's going to happen when... Okay, and then the next thing we have to deal with is sea level rise. So first, the population increase is going to need about 3.5 million more acres developed. Because of this, the land has to be taken out of its current use for housing. So the Florida Wildlife Corridor will lose approximately 1.2 million acres of land. And agricultural land that is lost to development is going to be 2.2 million acres. And with sea level rise, we're going to lose an additional 1.7 million acres of land. These reports, I would encourage you to read them. This is just a snapshot by the Center of Landscape and Conservation Planning. You just go on Florida 2070. There are several reports that deal with water and population. And just look to see how, if we continue what we're doing, how it's going to affect food and agriculture and water by 2070. So this is what we're contending with in the state. And because of all of this, we're having issues with our water bodies. So less than 0.35 milligrams per liter is where we want our nitrates to be in our water. But a significant portion, more than 24 of our 30 Florida springs have more than a gram, which is significantly greater than what it should be. And agriculture is one of the reasons why, and especially those dominant counties like Jackson County in the Panhandle, about 79% of the nitrate load has been attributed to farm fertilizer. But living the American dream and having a white picket fence and a green lawn is also contributing to this because we're mismanaging nitrogen fertilizer. To maintain those green lawns, we are over-applying. Homeowners are over-applying nitrogen fertilizers. So we need to develop sustainability practices that will reduce nitrogen losses while maintaining the farm productivity. So why does all of this matter to us? Why are we interested in sustainable ag? Personally, these are the reasons. Strengthening climate resilience. Already on this trajectory of a warming planet, but what we do now can slow the exponential increase in the way the planet warms out and warms up. And then we can also reduce these extreme weather conditions like drought and heat waves and floods. We can protect our waters by preventing nitrogen and phosphorus runoff from entering our springs and rivers and aquifers. Economic viability is important because sustainability will not be adopted if the farmer does not make money from those practices. And this whole concept of global food security, I think, is very critical to ensure that every community has access to both affordable and nutritious food. So this is why agricultural sustainability matters, whether you live in a city or you live in the country. Why sustainability matters? Because we want to protect the resources. We want to protect our water, our air, and our land. So I've shared some of this, what the current reality is about the climate volatility and the extreme weather that we're seeing in Tallahassee and the Panhandle. We've had weather in the teens this year. That's extreme. And followed by a month of no rain. We're expanding our biological threats because of a warming climate and competition for land use from urbanization and population increase. And then the rising input, the cost for agricultural inputs are increasing. I have a few slides on this later. So I want you to focus on these two images. They're the same soil type. They're on, say, the same land and the same region. They're receiving the same amount of rainfall. This is what you're seeing. Oops.
Or crops in the second picture.
More crops. So can you tell me what the dominant crop is in the second one? It's a grass. It's hard to tell. Corn is a grass. So it's hard to tell if it's a corn or barley or wheat. They all, grasses kind of look alike when they're younger. So in the first picture, you're seeing a soybean field, and the land is not covered. So we're having nutrient loss, soil degradation. And because of the nutrient loss, the farmer, based on the recommendation, would apply the amount of nutrients that crop need. But there has been high intensity rainfall. I'm looking at the soil crust, and I know there was high intensity rainfall in that field. And it leached all that nutrient. And look at the leaves on that plant. It's yellow because it's not making its way to the plant. Instead of 50% of the nutrients making its way, probably now only 10%. So where does the 90% go? And then the second picture has more crops. This is a more sustainable way of growing crops, where in this case it's intercropping a broadleaf into some kind of grassy base cover. And here, because we have the soil cover, we're able to, the roots are able to retain more of that water in the growing top layer of the soil profile. We're able to increase soil health because every time we plow lots of biomass into the soil, it decomposes and mineralizes and become available to the plants. And we're having nutrient cycle. So what I want to drive home here is that sustainability is driven by management decisions, because the farmer with the green field here, he made a decision. And this actually happens in practice. This farmer made a decision to plant more than one crop to cover as much as possible the soil. And it's not based on luck. So how do we shift farmers from reacting to planning? And even as home gardeners, how do we shift our mindset from reacting to planning? What are some of the things we can work on? There's a lot here. I don't want to read them. Maybe this presentation can be shared later, but there's a list of things that we know works, that we can shift from reacting to becoming much more sustainable. Does any of this stand out to anybody in the room? Any one of these practices? So sustainability starts with its decision making, but it starts with planning, pre-season, in-season, post-season. Does any of these practices stand out?
Three, especially the crop rotation. I'm from Tanzania and we only have sun and rain. So the best thing you can do for the soil is to kind of like rotate the.
Yes, that is very critical, crop rotation, because in monoculture agriculture here, rotation is kind of limited to two crops. You're planting peanuts or cotton continuously, or you're planting corn and soybean, or some combination of the other. So our rotation is very limited. That resonates with me because we plant a suite of crops, and then we allow the land to rest, to fallow, before we go and plant, repeat that cycle. Anyone else, any of these practices?
The third one and two, planning around hurricanes, is huge in Florida because of all the hurricanes. And we didn't have, like, our hurricane season was very lax this year comparatively to the year before, or we had the two back to back.
Exact planning around the hurricanes is important because this happened a couple of times in 2018. I remember for sure when Michael hit us in the Panhandle. Michael harvested all of our cotton. And we planted it because it just harvested it for us. And cotton farmers in the state lost a lot of cotton that year. So if we had planted a shorter season, cotton that would, the lint would mature earlier, we could have avoided some of that issue. So planning around natural disasters, if we can predict them.
I think number one is the most important, it's the foundation of regenerative agriculture. It's just shifting your focus from your crops to your soil, and then everything else will follow. Like, soil health is the foundation of your farm. And if you're not focusing on what is making your soil healthy, then you can't focus on what's going to make your crops healthy. And so everything kind of follows from what are the strategies that we can do to improve the quality of our soil health. And that's going to be intercropping, crop rotation, no-till, adding amendments like natural compost, biochar, all of those things, cover cropping. That's what's going to make all of the other 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 easier. Like you can't do the 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 if you're not focusing on the health of your soil.
Yes, I completely agree. This soil is a living organism that we need to take care of. And soil testing to know where we are, amending that soil, whether we need to lime it, and how we can improve upon it. So I think time is I only have 5 minutes. So how we achieve sustainable ag? I would like to present this as a framework of climate smart agriculture that addresses increased productivity and enhanced resilience and reduced emissions. So what practices that allow us to increase productivity on the farm, then allow those farms to reduce crop failures during extreme weather, such as drought, storms, and heat, and how can we lower greenhouse gas emissions? And these next set of slides are just examples of ways we can achieve this. So we talk about soil health as the foundation. We have to minimize soil disturbance as much as possible because every time we till the soil, we're breaking the soil up, we're releasing carbon. So when it comes to keeping carbon in the soil, we have to minimize it as tillage as much as possible. So there are conservation tillage methods that farmers use that where they till only where they plant. So in peanut, cotton, corn, and soybean, it's planted in a 36 row center. So that means only the strip where the seed is being placed is being tilled and the rest is left untilled just to protect the soil. We have to maximize cover as much as possible by planting cover crops. And these cover crops maintain year-round living roots and feed the soil biology, which makes the system, the entire system, more resilient. So in essence, we need to maintain soil health as much as we can. Then there's a suite of soil and water conservation practices. So I talked about cover crops, how that can recycle nutrients. We talk about rotations, diversifying our rotations. When it comes to resource management, we need to look at this 4R framework for using nutrients, using the right rate, the right time, at the right place, and using the right source. And that is a critical approach to ensure that the fertilizer we apply stay where it is and it enters the plant without entering our water bodies. Precision ag is becoming more and more in commercial ag. We are using it for variable rate application of ag inputs, such as using soil moisture sensors to tell us where we need to water, because a field is heterogeneous, meaning it's not even a 5-acre field is not even the soil type is going to change. So where do we need to apply more water? Where there's a disease hotspot in a field, where do we need to apply a spray? If a part is more sandy or clay, where can we plant more seeds so we can make the yield across that entire field stable? So precision ag technologies are helping us to do that. And then there's this whole circular system, something I'm very interested in, where we take waste from one system and let it become the input of another system. So for example, using crop residues and food wastes to develop composts, or integrating livestock into our cropping systems. And this is something that's practiced in the Panhandle, where we have integrated crop livestock systems. So we have row crop producers that would integrate cattle production on their land, and when they grow bahia between cotton and peanut. And so there's a suite of circular systems that we can follow. Then there is some nature-based solutions, such as using riparian buffers. These are strips of native plants, it could be grasses or trees, that are planted next to streams, that serves as filters for nutrients and sediments to keep nutrients away from our water bodies. We can wetlands, treat them as nutrient sinks. Having perennial systems, because those systems reduce our soil erosion and increase carbon sequestration. Perennial meaning plants like not our row crops, but perennial food crops. And having pollinator habitats and silviculture, that's agroforestry, where we're integrating agriculture with forestry systems because it takes about 20 to 30 years for these forestry systems to become productive. How about integrating some kind of agriculture? And then we have to farmers are dealing with rising costs of seeds, chemicals, and fertilizers. And what is happening, yields are increasing, but the price of those products are so volatile from year to year that farmers are really not making money. If you look at that red line, this is data out of USDA. This tells you how many years within from 2003 to 2022 farmers were actually making money. And if you look, it's only soybean has been productive. The rest of the crops, not so much. They are below that red line. So quickly want to share this study. This is an important study. I'm from Guyana, and I take some pride in this study. I did not publish it. This is in Nature Food, and it looked at 183 countries across the entire world, and it looks at national self-sufficiency. Which country is producing calories and which country is producing nutritious food to meet the needs of its people. And Guyana has been identified as the only country that's fully food sufficient across all the 183 countries in the study. And they use this WWF Live Well diet recommendation. I will go back here if you can take a picture of this because I may run through this very quickly. So you can go and reference this paper. It's or pull this paper and read it. It's an important paper. So why is this? Because Guyana is self-sufficient across all 7 food categories. It means that we can produce enough calories and nutritious food across all 7 to meet the needs of our population. It does not mean that everyone in Guyana is well nourished because there is a gap issue happening. It does not mean that we don't import food. There's certain food that we import that doesn't grow in Guyana, but it means that we are able to produce calories across all 7 categories to meet our needs. So the US is very strong in meat and dairy and staples, but we are very weak in fruits, vegetables, and fish and seafood. So it means that our import bill on these commodities is very high. We're producing a lot of calories when it comes to meat, dairy, and staples, but not so much fruits and vegetables. And we kind of think of fruits and vegetables as specialty crops. This is how it's termed. They're not. There should be food security assets because that's where the nutrition is in the fruits and veggies. So what this is telling us that the US food system is resilient in calories and animal products, but we're very vulnerable in these other categories, fruits, vegetables, and fish. So I'm going to reach through this because of my time. What can we learn from this study? That high production of calories does not mean dietary self-sufficiency. We're producing calories, we're not producing enough food. So what can we do? We need to diversify, not just intensify. Agriculture is getting more and more monoculture. As we become more and more corporate, and agriculture in the US become more and more vertically integrated, where the chemical company owns the rights to the seed, and then they're also buying the fertilizer company. So everything is being vertically integrated. We need to diversify, not just intensify. And how we do that is producing foods across all of these 7 food groups. And rethink the way we think about fruits and vegetables. We need to address this vegetable gap head on. Although vegetables are highly perishable, they're labor intensive, and they require infrastructure, they're poorly supported by commodity programs in the state and across the US. We need to invest heavily in controlled environmental agriculture, and so we can extend the season in which these crops are grown, whether it's in Florida, Alabama, Georgia, or elsewhere in the US. So facilities like greenhouses and protected ag facilities. So we can grow more vegetables to address this vegetable gap. The chart on our upper right-hand corner shows how much fruits and vegetables we're importing. And you can see it is linearly increasing. If you draw a straight line through that line curve there, it is exponentially increasing. So next thing we need to do is reduce single region dependence. California is our #1 producer for many of the fruits and vegetables, which the food groups that we're lacking in as a country, because we're importing a lot of it, and we depend on California. The rest of the country pretty much depend on California as well. For a lot of the vegetables, we import seafood. We depend on the Midwest for legumes and oilseeds. So what we can do is build a redundant regional capacity. What that means is just grow more fruits and veggies in the Southeast more than we need. Because of time, I want to get to this part. And this is why I got into agriculture. And I grew up on a farm, but I needed a nudge. And this was my nudge. Hearing a technical advisor to the Minister of Agriculture in Guyana tell us, my graduating class, growing food for others makes agriculture the most selfless and noblest of professions. And when I heard this was my light bulb. This is why I wanted to get into agriculture. And I want to encourage students here that you have a part in sustainable agriculture and food systems as well. Regardless if you're in data science and AI, you're in engineering, natural resources, extension, agronomy, policy, and economics, there is a seat for you at the sustainable agriculture table. So these are the things you can do to build technical skills, learn some data analysis skills, get experience, seek internships with local agencies and federal agencies, state agencies, engage in research projects, whether it's here at USF or at FAMU or elsewhere, just engage in a research project, reach out and volunteer. There's a lot of skills to be gained from volunteering. And this is my final slide, I promise. I want to summarize to say, as a state, we're under pressure from climate, from land loss, and water quality. And at this tipping point, it means that we have to balance agriculture from this perspective of, is it profitable? Is it affecting people? And is it the right thing to do for the planet? The biggest gains that we get from adopting sustainable practices, as I said before, is not about reacting, but making intentional decisions from planning. And anytime we're making a recommendation, it needs to be realistic. It needs to be able to scale that recommendation to commercial. I see science, data, and innovation as resources that we can use to maintain the productivity of our land. Florida, based on what I've said, I have to conclude it's a frontline state. The choices we make now, whether on farms or in Tallahassee in policy and in research, will determine whether agriculture stays productive, profitable, social aspect, trusted. When we talk about corporate ag, we tend to get suspicious. We want to be able to trust our food. So my question that I will leave you with is, what role will you play in building a resilient food system? And I'll share this last thing, and I shared it with the faculty in the meeting. Every time we spend $1 at the supermarket, it's a political decision we make in order what we're supporting when it comes to the food we eat. So make wise decisions.
Any questions?
So you deal with farmers on the ground in your work, or are you purely research?
So I was research, now I'm in administration, and I do work with farmers as well.
So what do you perceive as the biggest barrier to adoption of regenerative ag, sustainability, like all of the solutions that we're talking about here that, you know, the academia is very clear, we need to be doing these things yesterday. But most industries are slow moving and conservative in terms of their decision to change, right? Adopt new technologies, new practices, et cetera. So what are you coming up against as the biggest barriers to adoption of these things?
So in a study that we've done when I was working with Coronado, awareness was the number one, that these practices can avail these benefits. That's a paper published by Wendy Lynn Bartels. I can probably share that with the group. Then the second thing is it needs to be profitable. Any farmer adopting a new practice, how it affects his bottom line is very important because we have ambassador farmers. If those ambassador farmers in any community, the guys who adopt the practice first, if it doesn't make them money, it really kills that recommendation for the next season. So we have to, when we make recommendations, in my previous life, what I did is take a third of an acre and try this versus what traditionally doing and see how one pans out to the next. And then you make that decision. So we start with ambassador farmers that can use the recommendations and then allow the rest of the community to see it acting on a producer's field. So it comes down to bottom line, to money. Are they making enough money?
So speaking about farmers needing to be profitable, of course, the Coronado plan seems to be profitable just because you'd be able to sell that and it helps your soil. So that makes sense. But when you talk about needing to increase the yield of fruits and vegetables in southern states, that would necessarily reduce the price of fruits and vegetables, thus reducing their potential profit. Do you think that subsidizing that would be the best way forward?
So I think if there's a demand from consumers, the money has to come from somewhere to subsidize it. So if we are willing to pay a higher price or a premium for a product, and the society is willing to do it, I think organic is something that people were willing to pay higher prices for. And Bart was telling me about that delta, the gap between organic and conventionally produced food is getting narrower and narrower. So the same thing with these practices. So there need to be trust in the food that we eat, in the sense when somebody say it's organic, what does it mean? When we say sustainable, what does it mean? When we say it's from regenerative ag or biological ag, who is a third-party certification that is providing the food we eat these certifications? I'm not sure if I addressed your question, so if you can repeat.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that it's a hard political reality to, create a subsidy for this stuff. And I was thinking it'd be hard to make it profitable when you're just increasing the supply of goods in the marketplace. Now, I hear what you're saying about reducing the gap between organic goods, which is definitely something that people would want to see happen. But if we care about economic, equity, then we have to ensure that, for underprivileged people, there is also cheap goods for them too, which improving the number of fruits and vegetables would induce that. But we need to subsidize the farmers able to do that.
No, I completely agree with you.
Okay.
Because there's certain practices that need to be incentivized for a farmer to adopt it. And if as a society we're willing to pay that price, I think we should be given that opportunity to pay for it. But I also agree that family making decisions and that are resource limited and having to choose between calories and nutrition probably go for calories.
Or we could shift existing subsidies.
Yeah.
Right, from what they're currently funding, which are bad practices, to funding these kinds of practices, which would be good practices, using the same batch of money that we're already paying.
Yeah, I agree with you, but that's logical,
Right.
not political.
We also have a question from online. You go ahead, Dr. Cabrera.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, we can.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for a very nice presentation. Because we're talking about sustainable agriculture, but you focused more on the crops and the soil, and I just want to see it from the water side. Because you have to also be efficient in your water application, but also you can also reduce the potential contamination of, for example, nitrate to our aquifer, whatever. So I was wondering, do you guys also study on the reuse of agricultural runoff, bring it back so that you save water, but also you avoid the pollution of the aquifer or whatever, the surface water.
So thank you very much. The issue of water quantity and quality. So we do, I think, have this psychological barrier when it comes to reuse of gray water. And I know in golf courses and forage systems and lawns and that they have application. But when it comes to our food systems, gray water can be a little bit tricky from food safety issue. So I personally haven't done any work in the water quality issue, but when it comes to water quantity, whether we use drip irrigation to save on water, or we use sprinklers or flood irrigation, uh, anything that's going to keep, because in Florida soils, if you can keep the water in the root zone, it means we're keeping the nutrients in the root zone. So that's the approach I would take. This whole more crop per drop, where we are minimizing water loss from our farms. It's
Yeah,
more
then
water
just a
exiting the
follow-up.
farm means more nutrients exiting the farm.
Yeah, just a follow-up. You show in one of your slides, you showed the nitrate pollution map. So there was a red in the middle. Is that Lake Okeechobee?
Can't recall. I'll have to go look at the slide.
Slide. I don't think it was. No, Okeechobee is way south. Yeah, I could see, I thought.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, where is that?
So this slide came from
Yeah.
Max.
That's like Lakeland.
It looks like it. Lakeland area.
A local person can probably say which county it's from.
Maybe
It's a map published by
maybe it's
FDAT.
Polk. I don't know. Looks like Polk.
What city?
Yes, Okeechobee is further.
It's where the south.
Yeah.
Way south, yeah. It's about there. Even south, yeah.
So there's
All
a
right,
bill
all right.
that Randy Maggard, who represents the Zephyr Hills area, introduced to the Florida House, House Bill 479, which prohibits counties and municipalities from adopting laws, regulation, rules that prohibit adjacent, whatever. It takes home rule away from communities. It doesn't allow them to regulate the water being used in their land. How do you foresee that affecting, agriculture here? Or don't let communities like regulate their water quality and how much business can use of their water?
So this is a very political issue because no farmer wants to have the state government checking the quality of water in their wells or runoff. Because there is this fear that you are going to get fined for the practices, but that's not what it is. The state wants to have, I think, every 6 months, there is a check to see whether the BMPs that they recommend, whether you are a hay producer, a cattle producer, or any other commodity, to see what practices that they recommend if it's making a difference. So that the water quality issue, the quantity issue is not the problem, is the quality issue. We want to make a difference in the nitrates in the springs. So adoption of the BMPs from the state, and that list actually came out of that BMP document the state has published for cattle operations and other ag operations.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy.
For the sake of time,
Is it okay? Yeah. Okay, we'll find a way to share the presentation. I have a copy. Maybe we can have a link on our website.
yeah, we also have the emails. We did the checking, so we can share the link by email to everybody who did the checking with us.
And we spoke about nutrition versus calories. That's why we have pizza here.
Oh, yeah.
But feel free to put some blueberries or pineapple. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.
State of
Hey, Manuel. Here. Más abajo.